All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. So, it's really crazy when we think about the stuff that we have to deal with in our community. When we have to deal with people who say things and then backtrack when they actually said exactly how they felt when they did. And so in Indiana, there was a conversation taking place about education. And a Republican legislator actually made a comment about black students. House Education Committee Chairman Bob Behning of Indianapolis said this last week. They were having a conversation with regards to education. They were talking about standardized testing and students, and he literally said, y'all, he literally said, just want y'all to understand, that, quote, for black students, they don't perform better academically because they lack respect for learning. Well, he got lit up because of that. He made the stat showing 3 out of 1,000 black students in the Indianapolis Public School system passed both the English and math portions of the state's ILEARN standardized exam last year. This is his apology. I should have been clear in stating what I truly believe to be the biggest obstacles to improving our children's academic performance. I sincerely regret my remarks have been hurtful to others, and I apologize for it. Mark Russell is the Director of Education and Family Services for the Indianapolis Urban League. He joins us right now. Mark, he was real clear in terms of exactly how he felt. He just simply got busted.
No doubt about it, Roland. No doubt about it.
The thing that jumps out to me on this whole deal is this notion that black folks don't have a respect for learning. What this speaks to is this notion from Republicans, how they love to ignore all the other aspects that go into education. They ignore prenatal health care for the mother. They ignore, again, health care when the child is born. They ignore living conditions. They ignore poverty. They ignore, is that child getting 3 meals a day? They ignore all those things, but it's, oh, they have no respect for learning, which is sort of hilarious considering black folks, when we were killed because we were trying to learn to read. Now, we've always respected learning. It's when we have been denied opportunities to actually learn.
This has been an unfortunate byproduct of a legislative session this year that has been focused on distraction. Instead of dealing with the real academic challenges of students of color here in Indiana, the supermajority Republican legislature has decided to engage in distraction. So their major focus has been on a CRT bill that would restrict what teachers can teach about factual, actual events rather than helping the majority of our students succeed. And it's a sad symptom of what's going on in America today, where it is very hard to continue to be a black person in the United States of America. And this roadshow of ignorance has made its way here and has been focused on children that can least afford to carry the weight, which is children of color.
And the thing that is crazy here, this is the person who is the education chair. He controls the money.
Yes, Mr. Behning has been a long-time chair of the House Education Committee. I've dealt with him, and the Indianapolis Urban League has dealt with him in good faith over many years. This unfortunately came about in a moment that he was testifying in the Senate chambers trying to get one of his House bills passed. And as he himself admitted, he decided to use a quote, which is an actual fact, that of 1,000 black students in Indianapolis Public Schools, 30 between the ages of 3rd and 8th grade, 30 that took the ILEARN assessment, as we called it. Only 30 passed both portions with proficiency, meaning math and English. But he said he chose that fact for its shock value. Now, several months ago, a local foundation echoed the same facts, the James M. Fairbanks Foundation, but it was a part of a huge study that they had done that looked systematically at educational challenges facing our youth. It was not to denigrate, but to point out how hard the challenge was, that original quotation.
So what's next? He apologized, but I think there needs to be more.
Well, he did apologize, but in fact, only one reporter did their due diligence in our media market and asked if we would accept the apology. And we did not. We do not think it was sincere. And again, because all these time and resources have been devoted to distractions and not to actual issues that could help our students navigate the 21st century and the learning curves that it demands, we did not accept the apology.
Understand. Any comment here from my panelists, Kelly, Michael, or Matt, for Brother Mark?
Yeah, I had a quick question, Brother Mark. This is Michael Imhotep. So the study that you mentioned, did the study make any recommendations on improving the test scores or performance of African American students? I'm just curious.
Yes, Brother Michael, the study made a host of recommendations, and the authors of that study are held in high esteem in both the Black and white communities here in Indianapolis. This is not something that occurred overnight. It's part of the love affair with assessment testing. And to think people conflate scores on assessment testing with the actual ability to think critically and navigate. I was not one that did particularly well on the SAT or other assessments like that. But I obviously was able to complete my education at Indiana University in Bloomington, double majored in telecommunications and political science. I have served from the governor's office here to the Urban League. So a test does not measure intelligence, and tests do not measure the inputs that go into the classroom that are reflected in this output. Right now, for example, within the Indiana standards, it is mandatory that Indiana students learn about the Holocaust. Nothing wrong with that. We totally support that. What is totally missing until this bill and his negative remarks drew a lot of attention is that there are no requirements, no similar requirements that students be taught Black history.
Right.
And that in itself is telling. When that was offered as an amendment in the Senate, this bill originated in the Indiana House. When it was offered as an amendment in the Indiana Senate, it was voted down by the Republican supermajority, save 2 that joined the Democrats.
Matt, Kelly?
I have a question for you, Brother Mark. As it relates to the ILEARN scores, is the money that's earmarked for each respective district in Indiana based on those ILEARN scores? And if it is, what has been Chairman Behning's position over the last few legislative cycles for increasing money for students in the Indianapolis school district? Well,
the per pupil amount of assistance is based on a multi-factor formula that's very complex, but it has been replaced over the years. Since the Republican supermajority took over, there used to be what we called a complexity index, meaning if a student hailed from a school that was traditionally under-resourced, if they were low income, if they were first generation learners or heading to college, that district received more money in terms of complexity funds than did other districts. Now it's a more linear relationship. between school grades, which we've held in advance now in Indiana for the past 3 school years because of a variety of factors. But it's basically a hold harmless provision that allows the rich districts that were getting the most money since the Republicans became the supermajority. It allows those districts to maintain equal funding, and struggling urban schools and suburban schools start from behind and are given less to work with even more complex students. And that includes special ed students, of which in IPS in particular, they're about 23% of the student body.
Kelly.
Yes. So, the racist statement aside, has there been any talk within Indiana legislation about reconciling the fact that standardized testing doesn't take into consideration the underlying insidious racism within public schools? So, like, the factors that these children have to overcome in order to take the standardized testing: lack of food, lack of shelter. There's a wealth gap. There is just several gaps in education that standardized testing does not take into account. So, has there been any talk in legislation in your state regarding those matters, so that comments like his, while wrong now, will be even more wrong, soon coming?
Yes, and thank you for that question. First of all, your question is premised on the belief that they would ask if such a thing as racism exists. They vehemently deny that it does, or that it is a factor in hindering student performance. That aside, there are documented opportunity gaps, is what we choose to call them, because we don't believe in racial gaps. That implies that a deficiency lays in the part of race. That's not the fact. The fact is there are opportunity gaps that can be associated with race and ethnicity, but primarily poverty, that the General Assembly, the Indiana General Assembly, has chosen to ignore. And again, to kick and throw sand upon the very fact, in spite of the abundance of evidence that institutional racism has existed and continues to exist. In spite of that, they have thrown sand on that idea and have not offered any substantive proposals. It's like, okay, they're drowning. We may as well not even bother with a life raft or a boat.
Well, look, keep fighting a good fight, keep putting pressure on him. And the bottom line is we know now what he thinks, and now he has to make amends when it comes to allocating the money. Mark Russell, thanks a bunch. I appreciate it with the Indianapolis Urban League.
Thank you for your time and commitment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. All right, folks, a former Indiana teacher at Jimtown High School faces battery charges for assaulting a student. Last week, Michael Hosinki chased a student down to confront him about his attire, specifically his hoodie. When Hosinki catches up to the student, he slaps the student, knocking him to the ground. Folks, look at this video. You'll see this here. He is facing this preliminary battery charges. Now, 2 hours after the incident, watch this, slapped him in his face. 2 hours after the incident, Hosinki applied for early retirement. The school board granted his request. He will receive his full pension. But folks, after they granted the request, he got loud applause from the board and the audience. Kelly.
I'm so glad I don't have children yet. I would already be in jail. That was incredibly disturbing to watch. I really am kind of at a loss for words for that. And the fact that he got a standing ovation for slapping a black child for no reason is all the more reason why I would be in jail for unthinkable crimes towards that man, because you're not going to put your hands on my kid and get away with it. And I'm sure the parents of that young man feel the same way, as well as other parents in the school who have seen this tape. There is absolutely no excuse for such behavior from a teacher, anyone, but let alone someone who basically more or less took a pledge to care for your child while they are in that school building, and he just fails on all levels of that. So there definitely need to be harder repercussions for that. Charges need to be pressed. Jumpsuits need to be worn because he should be in jail.
And I see lawsuit, Matt.
I absolutely see lawsuit, and I see the school board committing dereliction of duty. I mean, the school board is there to protect children. So if a teacher assaults a kid on campus while in the school, and they not only give him a standing ovation, but they give him his pension, I don't see how those people keep their seats going forward. Obviously, their priorities are messed up. But if I'm a parent, I have children. And if I'm a parent in that school district, I'm calling for all of them to resign immediately. I don't know that happens, but I mean, this is as far as it goes. Teachers are there to protect and instruct students, not assault them. And they definitely should not be rewarded for doing so.
Michael?
Yeah, Roland, this is another strange story, and it's coming out of Indiana. And I want to know some more details on this. I want to know, has Michael Hosinski or Hosinski, has he slapped any other children? Has he slapped any white children before? I want more details on this. But yeah, and then for him to get a standing ovation when he retired also. That's suspect as well. So this is, but this is one of the reasons why you have a lot of African American children who are choosing to homeschool their children because of the racism and microaggressions and things like this that African American children suffer in schools.
It's absolutely crazy. And so, again, we'll see what happens. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?